guys, it's Syama Maher here, CEO of Scaling Retail, and today we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and to be more frank, racism, and how we really start to approach taking a critical lens of our own industry. Now, you may have been hearing, it's really hard not to hear, so many number of people who've been getting called out in this called out culture of being able to not have practices that are really in alignment with how they've been talking about their businesses. When it comes to notions of things like Black Lives Matter and being able to take a look at how racism and systemic racism has been affecting our country and the world, we also have to take a look at some of the practices that we have internally as individuals and how we actually export our own beliefs into our culture and our systems of our businesses. Sometimes we think that we're just making the best decision because it's the way we've been told to make a decision, or it's the way that other mentors have told us to look at things. But this is the time for us to really stop and ask ourselves, have I ever been making assumptions about other people? Have I been choosing to look at something through the lens without fully understanding the depths of that? Just hiring the best talent that's coming out of Harvard doesn't necessarily mean that you're hiring the best talent that this country has to provide you. In some cases, it might mean that you're just looking further and further into serving and hiring people from a very myopic pool of systemic racism or nepotism. And those types of things are important to look at and to reflect on. Not every single brilliant person has had the opportunity to get funneled through some of the best school systems and end up graduating from the best colleges. So when we look at diversity and inclusion as an industry, we have to really be looking at diversity and inclusion within ourselves and our own interpersonal biases that we come to our offices with, that we show up in our friendships and our partnerships with. When we start to look at that more critically, what we'll find is that none of us are perfect, none of us have the answer, and all of us are struggling with our own percentages of privilege across different areas, right? However you have privilege in your life, it's important to take a look at that and say, hey, I have this gift, I have this opportunity. How can I use that to expand my viewpoint? How can I acknowledge the fact that there are things that I don't know and don't have experience in, and that's okay? And so one of the biggest things I think that a lot of companies in particular are shying away from is saying, hey, we don't know. Or, hey, we've made a mistake and we don't know how to fix it. Or, hey, like, how do we move forward through something that's very ambiguous and that's messy and that has deep cultural implications and roots? It's not simply firing the CEO of a company that's going to change their practices. It's really understanding and looking at what are some of the benchmarks of inclusion and diversity that we have to be considering. What are the different ways in which we're nurturing and fostering talent? If you take a look at your talent pool and you're not working with a diverse work group, you have to ask yourself, well, why is that? Am I actually trying? And so what I think is important to recognize here is that in order to promote a more diverse and inclusive workspace and ultimately planet, we have to try. We have to be able to look outside of our own communities. We have to look outside of just the people we know and make an effort to understand and to hire out and to be diverse in our practices. Now, prior to a lot of this big backlash happening and exposing, we saw a lot of issues with cultural appropriation in terms of products and design. Also very problematic. Companies on the forefront of making waves in these spaces have hired chief diversity officers. But my question to them is, what are the benchmarks and metrics that you're going to be holding yourself to? I don't know what they are, right? What are the things that we need to do to collaboratively have a conversation about where the industry should be heading? Perhaps in many of the same ways that we've approached climate change and the environment as a collective industry, trying to fight ways of being able to combat those issues, thereby resulting in the drop in prices of a lot of environmentally friendly fabrics. Consumers looking for brands who are espousing their values in terms of product development, performance, and integrity for the planet. These similar types of ways of being need to be approached as we look at diversity and inclusion within our corporate and work environments. Customers are going to be looking to us, to you, to be able to set an example of what that truly means. And as we've been saying now for the last 2 years, Gen Zs and millennials are fully dedicated to authenticity and transparency. So taking down a CEO is one step, but instilling best practices or new practices or experimenting and having those conversations as to what should be next is truly the next way forward. All right, guys, that's how I feel about diversity and inclusion. This is a very sticky and tough topic. It is something that we are finally starting to address through open dialogue and communication. I've been working with a lot of our brands to develop diversity and inclusion policies. How do we look at diversity? How do we look at skill sets? How do we look at ways of being non-judgmental while still hiring for talent and hiring the best person for the job? These are really important things to consider. If you are interested in taking a deeper look at diversity and inclusion for your business, how you can start to ask those reflective questions and create a new set of values and principles to carry your business forward, please send me an email at hello@scalingretail.com. I'd love to help you explore how you can make your business sustainable for the future. Thanks. Bye.